now. And we're going to go live in Facebook. All right, so we're recording. Welcome everyone to day 1 of 3 days to breathe again. Okay, so it says we're streaming on Facebook. All the technology pieces, it takes a little bit to get used to everything and have everything like open at the same time. Okay, so hang on one more second. All right. So I think we're good. Welcome everyone. Welcome to 3 days to breathe again, to our first day. I am so grateful and excited to have everyone on live that is here now. And then the replay will also be available in the, okay, I'm just seeing on the screen. Okay. All right, it appears that the screen on Facebook is going to show, okay. All right, I'm just checking a few things. Sorry about all of this. It won't be as discombobulated at the beginning of tomorrow's call, hopefully. All right, it looks like we're good. All right, so I think we can get started. So welcome to day 1 of 3 days to breathe again. In this program, we are going to discuss how to navigate unexpected or unwanted change in our lives. Our theme today is surrender. So before we begin, I would like to cover a few housekeeping items. Everyone has their mute on, so that's good. At the end, I'll open for questions. So if you have any questions, then you can unmute and ask your question. And that also helps with the background noise. And then video can be on or off, whatever you feel more comfortable with. I appreciate everyone that is here live. And then if you don't already have a pen or a journal with you to take notes, you may want to grab that now. And so as we begin, I would like to invite everyone to imagine that we are in a community circle together. In this moment now, sharing this present moment together. And a mutual friend of some of ours on this call posted a poem basically on Facebook yesterday. And so I'd like to start with reading that. It's a really beautiful poem and it helps us understand kind of the collective energy of what's going on right now, because we just had the new moon in Pisces yesterday, and this is written by Virginia Rosenberg, so I'm just going to read a portion of it as we begin. Pull away, exit time, doze and flow. Untether from linear livings. Close your schedule, let your boat lift, tilt, and sail adrift. Find the place where the clouds meet the sea, and rest there. Surrender control and calculation. Unwind into the astonishment, be held by your own wonder. Relax into the emptiness, ebb into the fantastic other worlds inside you, as vast as they are deep, as still as they are churning, eternally soft and all-encompassing. If you can't see clearly yet, enjoy the mystical evanescence of your fog. When the clouds dissipate and the rain stops, the colors will glisten more brightly and cleanly than before. This moon is an exhale. There is wisdom in dissolving. Open yourself up to receive. I thought that was a beautiful way to open our call this evening, just because I feel that it's a really beautiful way to allow us to explore the inner journey. No matter what might be happening in life, we all have an inner journey, and we live in a culture that is very focused on the outer journey, the outer world. And times like this allow us to just return to the inner state, the inner being, and explore the depths of the inner journey. So I'm so excited that you're here with me in this moment. So what I would like to do is we'll start with lighting some Palo Santo. It is holy wood from Central and South America. And so I will just light it with my little candle here. We're just going to create a space of cleansing, basically whatever happened from the day, and just coming into this present moment now, and just letting everything clear. We're going to go into a breath practice, and we're going to just kind of allow that to help us come more present and just be in the space of listening and receiving and being and allowing. So another thing that I pulled in preparation for this card is this forest breath card. I got it from a deck that I have, the Earth Magic deck, and it's a beautiful deck, and I just found it really interesting that I actually pulled this specific card. And I have one more thing that I would like to read to you from a children's book, one of those children's books that's really designed for children or adults. And I really love this also as an intro to our time together tonight. It starts on the day you were born, and it's from the book On the Day You Were Born by Deborah Fraser. And I'll hold this up so that you can see it. On the day you were born, a forest of tall trees collected the sun's light in their leaves, where in silent mystery they made oxygen for you to breathe. So this evening we are going to go through a series of lessons, 3 of which will be grief, breath, and the thinking mind. And we're going to really connect to the element of air and the aspect of nature. And so I invite you to, as we join into this collective experience together, we're going to start with a breath practice, and we're going to utilize the breath to deepen our awareness and presence to be here now. We're going to begin with a basic exhale, and it is called Ujjayi breath. With Ujjayi breath, the focus is on the exhale. The inhale is pretty basic and normal. It's just a deeper inhale. So Ujjayi breath is sometimes called ocean sounding breath. It is even sometimes called Darth Vader breath. And the idea is to exhale with a constricted throat and mouth closed to create heat in the body and allow for a deepening into whatever we desire to release, physically, emotionally, and energetically. So how you do it is I'm going to invite you to try it with me. Basically, since everyone's on mute, should be no problem to try it. Basically, what you're going to do is hold your hand up to your mouth and exhale, ha. So basically, we're going to do this first just this way, and then I'll show you how we're going to transition into a closed mouth exhale. But basically, what we're trying to do is pretending that your hand in front of you is a mirror. And you're going to try to fog up the mirror by going, ha. So first I did it as a voiced ha, but we actually want to do it as a voiceless ha. Okay, so just try that now. Just an exhale as if you're trying to fog up a mirror. And then what we're going to do is now we're going to do the exhale with the throat constricted. Hey, Kimberly.
Stacy, we can't hear you.
Thank you.
There. Okay. I'm like, what happened? I broke it. Okay.
Could you hear me before?
Said hello and then it blinked out.
Okay. All right, good. And Stacy, thank you for letting me know that. And Kimberly, thank you. Okay, I might have accidentally muted myself. I was trying to mute Kimberly. So, okay, I muted Kimberly. All right, we'll go back. So basically what we're doing is we're practicing Ujjayi breath. So it starts with just doing a simple, as if you're trying to fog up a mirror on your hand. And then we're going to do it with the mouth closed, and we're going to create an ocean sounding or Darth Vader breath. And it just helps us deepen into the present moment through the practice of Ujjayi. Okay, so what we're going to do is I invite everyone to try this. So take a deep breath in, and then we're going to exhale. Okay, so let's all try that together. So take a deep breath in, breathing in through the nose, and then exhale. We'll do it 2 more times. Taking a deep breath in. We're going to exhale everything from the day. So it's just a forced exhale with the throat just a little more constricted. Okay, one more time, a deep breath in. And we're going to exhale and just coming fully into this present moment now. All right, perfect. Perfect. So don't worry if you didn't do it perfectly or you think you don't have it right. It's a little bit strange at first, but it just helps you take some deeper breaths and be here in this moment in your body, a little more centered, just kind of brings us into a state of presence and stillness. Okay. Okay, so I would like to invite everyone in this group to recognize that this is a safe sanctuary to be, feel, and experience whatever comes up in our time together. This is not only a cognitive experience, but also an embodied experience. And we're going to get more into the idea of embodiment tomorrow, because tomorrow is more about embodiment, whereas today is more about surrender. So we're going to really connect to the element of air, the element of fire for transformation, and allowing for a deeper understanding of how our cultural values and society's conditioning and our childhood experiences have formed who we are, and maybe just allowing a deeper understanding of how that can be surfaced in order to be healed. So this evening we are going to be covering the topic of surrendering. And to surrender is to yield, is to give and to succumb. What you are yielding to is your personality, your ego self. And when you experience surrender, sometimes there's a term known as a dark night of the soul, an ego death, which basically feels as if you're dying. It literally feels like a physical death. It almost feels as though the only way out and the only way to feel that you can survive it is to die. And sometimes those moments bring us to our knees. Or other times it's just a series of things that can feel like a pressure cooker in your life. And, you know, there's a lot of times where change comes in unexpected ways, and it forces us to go on a different path or evaluate aspects of our life and just kind of get curious about maybe what, saying my internet connection is unstable, but we're looking still okay. What's going on and what maybe next steps we maybe have to take as we move through the process of surrender. So surrender is an allowing of whatever arises in us now moment to be what it is. And sometimes we go into the place of surrender through kicking and screaming, but it is simply a starting point. We don't stay in the process of surrender forever. It is simply a beginning point on the inner journey that we will be on during this time together, especially focused on this day, day one. Surrender is simply an introduction into the inner journey. And again, it is our topic this evening. So I would like now to go into a story of my own surrender and how I came into my own version of surrender. So in my life, I've had multiple surrenders. The one I'm going to share with you this evening is my relationship with the father of my children, my ex-husband. And I met him in graduate school when I was at the University of New Mexico. And I met him when I was working at one of my internships. And immediately I was attracted to him, and we had a mutual connection, a mutual friend, and she introduced us. And from that point on, things unfolded fairly quickly. I felt within the first few months that he was going to be the father of my children, and we were married a year and a half later. And at the beginning, it seemed like things went very well. You know, I liked him, and I felt like I made the right decision, and everything seemed okay. And he would say things like, "I wish that you could see what I see when I look at you. It's just beautiful." And then that slowly turned into saying things like, "I wish that you could see what I see when I look at you. It's just ugly." And he started with more control and more name calling and more belittling in other forms of emotional and mental abuse. During that time, I got pregnant with my our first child, our daughter. And things slowly evolved into becoming more and more difficult. The pregnancy, I was stressed during much of the pregnancy because of the stress in our marriage. And even after our daughter was born, it was difficult, but I was in this fog of babydom, and I was focused on being a mother to an infant. And during that time, he decided to go into graduate school. And so for a little while, it kind of leveled off, and it was still okay. But basically, the way my mom described our relationship was that it was sort of like walking on eggshells. You never knew what to expect. You could never navigate whether you were saying the right thing or the wrong thing. And it was very fear-based in a lot of ways. And over time, it got more and more volatile. And funny enough, about 13 months in to my daughter being alive, I had this strong pull to have another child, despite the fact that I was in a marriage that felt very forced and effortful and difficult. And I made that decision, and I spoke with him about it. And at first he wasn't open to it. This is on one day. And then the second day he was open to it. And I got pregnant on that day. But then later he accused me of raping him. And of course I did not rape him. It was mutual. And it was just a progressive thing, to the point that one day I went to the doctor's office and I looked inside the stall at a poster that was hanging, and I read the signs of domestic abuse, and I didn't realize that I was in a domestic abuse situation, because it hadn't turned physical yet. It was mental and emotional. And it's amazing how much that we can sustain in terms of mental and emotional abuse, because it's very both subtle and sometimes more direct. And then they always kind of put on a good face to everyone else, or at least this is what he did. For him, it was always about what did everyone else see? How did everything look on the outside? And as long as it looked good on the outside, it was good. And it wasn't until a moment that I was giving my children a bath, and I remember that they were only a year and a half and, well, let me think, a year and a half and about 3.5, because they're 2 years apart. And they were in the bathtub, and I was giving them a bath together. And I was talking on the phone at the same time, so I was distracted. And at a certain point, I decided to get them both out of the bath and move on with the rest of my phone call. And anyway, I'm multitasking. And he comes up to the bathroom and he starts yelling, and he says, "Why are they crying?" Because they didn't want to get out of the bath, is what I told him, which was true in my reality. And he yelled at me and he said, that's not the reason that they're crying. They're crying because they don't want to be with you. And he said it like that. And I thought to myself, wow, like that was the first time I had the realization of his wound. And now I'm realizing that maybe he was reflecting on them, what he desired, which was to no longer be with me. But it really hit me in that moment. And there were other things that unfolded where he actually did start to get a little bit more physically abusive, just pushing me down on the bed. Nothing to where I had bruises, but it was still like, I was afraid of him. I was afraid of him on many occasions, and it was getting more and more intense and more volatile. So I finally had a point where I just was in a state of shock. I remember one time I decided to go to the movie by myself, and I came back and I just felt frozen. I felt like I couldn't move. And this is, again, coming from someone who was raised in the Catholic Church and never even considered the idea of a divorce. So divorce wasn't even in my realm of reality. And, you know, I had tried for years to make him happy. I felt that if I just tried harder, I would make him happy and that things would be good. And it never worked. So I had to really come to a place of surrender. I had to tell my parents. We had to go through the steps, and it just got more and more difficult because once he saw me as his enemy, he would lash out at me in multiple ways. And so I was afraid of him. And it was very difficult, but I knew that it was something that I had to do. And I really do feel that the strength that I gained through that experience was outside of the strength that I had within me at that time. It was a strength from God. And what I've learned through my that's just one of my experiences of surrender, but I've had many in my life. And what I've learned throughout my life in the experiences of surrender is each moment that we are challenged and tested, we get stronger. Every time we fall, every time we're pushed, every time we think we've made a mistake, we just get stronger and stronger and stronger. And so that's what I'm here to share in terms of my story and the lessons that I've learned is it's a journey. And I cried enough tears to fill, I would say, 2 Olympic-sized pools over the course of a decade of separating from this man and then having to co-parent with this man, actually 15 years now. It's amazing how fast time flies. But I've basically been hunted by him. We have one of the thickest files in the court system, and it's been a very challenging journey, to say the least. But again, it has made me who I am today, and it has definitely made me a more compassionate, stronger human being that has a greater sense of myself and my boundaries, and the ability to know when I mean no and yes. So that is the story of surrender that I wanted to share with all of you this evening. So as I mentioned at the beginning, we're going to go through 3 lessons, and the first lesson that we're going to cover is grief. And I'm going to talk for about another 30 minutes. And then if there's any questions or anyone that would like to share anything at the end of the hour, so in about 30 minutes from now, I'll open it up to any questions, and I would love to have that. And if not, then that's fine as well. So going into grief, again, from that first thing that I read, there's another portion of it that, again, is from Virginia Rosenberg, and this is what it says. Grieve, feel the world. Be the tears and let those waters carry you closer to what loves you. You always loved, you forever loved. You, your love is borderless and brimming. Pour yourself out, let go. Lose yourself in the imaginings. Be absorbed in the dreaming. Merge with the magic. Imagination precedes reality. What is created is first gestated. Water develops form. This moon is a cradle of soaking seeds. Seed soaking before planting is an old-time garden trick. It softens the seeds and opens them up, preparing them for germination. Let your seeds soak. Your timing is always perfect. That reminds me of something that I've seen recently on Facebook, where when you think that you've been buried, you've actually been planted. And again, it just goes back to, we don't realize our own strength. We don't realize how strong we are until we're given the opportunities to practice that emotional and spiritual fortitude and strength. You know, I see spiritual and mental and emotional work and growth and development sort of like going to the gym and working out your physical body, right? You have to sweat, you have to work at it a little bit to build the muscle. And that's what the spiritual journey is about as well. It's the more that we are given certain challenges and how we face those challenges, how we take those challenges on, shows the level of strength that we are building and developing. Because I really do believe that we are archangels in training, and we're in Earth School. Okay, so the first thing I would like to talk about as it relates to grief is the basic human need. And this goes to any human being that I have ever known, or even not known. The basic human need is to belong. Every human being desires to be safe, have a sense of belonging and connection. We are social human beings. We're social beings. We need each other. We have lived in a culture that tends to portray to us, oh, you can just do it all yourself. You don't need to rely on anyone else. You know, push it under the rug. Just kind of set it aside, pretend it's not there. No, we need to process, and we need to be in community to understand that we are in this collective human experience together, and that we're not alone in this journey. And that's exactly what it is. It's a journey. So grief can come in waves. Whenever you lose someone or something, whether it be through a divorce, whether it be through, say, a medical diagnosis, whether it be through someone passing, dying, it is a loss, and it can be extremely painful. And grief comes in ways that we don't expect. You know, something might trigger the grief, and then it just overtakes you, sort of like a wave taking you under the water. And sometimes the grief can feel so intense that you feel that you're upside down underwater and you don't even know which direction is up. I'm sure everyone here has experienced a level of all of those things. I certainly have. So in understanding the journey of grief and the human condition as it relates to grief, the first thing I would like to discuss is Elisabeth Kubler-Ross. I'm sure most of you have heard of Elisabeth Kubler-Ross. She was a hospice nurse and she worked throughout her career with dying patients in Germany. And she came up with the 5 stages of grief. And then I found someone else modified them just slightly and added 2 more. So I'm going to go through the 7 stages of grief. And I'll mention the 2 that were added in that were not the original stages of Elisabeth Kubler-Ross. So the first one is shock. And shock was added in as one of the 7 that was not included in Elisabeth Kubler-Ross's model. Shock is when we experience the trauma. It places us in fight, flight, or freeze, depending on what happened. Something gets triggered or something gets activated or an experience happens. And basically what happens in the brain is we have 2 amygdala that are in the temporal lobe of the brain. And basically it's at the point of, if you can imagine, going back behind your eyes and where your ears are, and just in the temporal lobe in that place on both sides. And the amygdala are the size of an almond. 2 little glands within the brain on both sides in the temporal lobe, both hemispheres of the brain. Basically what happens when we experience trauma is the amygdala activate and send cortisol into the body to keep us safe, which again, the response of the body, of the physiology of the body, is to place us in fight, flight, or freeze so that we respond to whatever the event is. So that's the initial paralysis at hearing the bad news or experiencing the situation. The second stage of grief is denial. And the next 4 are all part of the Elisabeth Kubler-Ross model. Denial being the first one in her model. So denial is when we try to avoid the inevitable. Denial is when we can't believe what happened and we want to deny it because the idea of owning or accepting the fact that this has happened is too difficult to bear. It feels unbearable. So the only way that we feel, the way our psyche is trying to protect us, is to go into denial in order to keep us out of shock and out of a state of unbearableness. That's not really a word, but you know what I mean, so that we can handle the situation. So denial is when we try to avoid the inevitable. And for each person, depending on the situation, depending on the severity of the loss, these can last however long they last. The next one is anger. Anger is the frustrated outpouring of bottled up emotions. So basically anger is, you know, everyone knows what anger looks like. Anger looks like a volcano erupting. Anger looks like bottling everything up and then just yelling or screaming or throwing things or whatever it is that is anger being expressed. Anger is one of the emotions that I've said many times that men are basically allowed to express happiness, contentment, and anger, and maybe a little bit of sadness. Sadness is allowed more now than it used to be, like crying. Men didn't used to be allowed to cry. But anger has always kind of been an emotion that men and women have, but I'm saying women have been permitted to experience more of a range of emotions, a larger spectrum. And men, it's been very limited with what men have been allowed to experience in our culture. And then what I've noticed is anger, afraid to express and feel anger, but really we just haven't been taught that anger is just a normal human emotion, and there are many healthy ways to express anger. One of them being physical exercise, or punching a punching bag, or going for a run, something where you can get the energy out, the density within the body. You know, if a trauma gets held within the body holds the memory of that trauma, and it has to be released, and it will keep coming up through triggers unless and until it is released. Okay, the next one is bargaining. So bargaining would be number 3 in the Elisabeth Kubler-Ross model, number 4 in the 7-stage model. Bargaining is seeking in vain for a way out. It's, you know, begging God, please don't make this happen. I'm asking, you know, that this isn't this way, you know, trying to make it, do everything you can to make it work or come back or, you know, resolve. And that's basically what bargaining is about. The second one that was added into this other model is testing, that was not in the original model. And testing is when we're seeking realistic solutions. So testing is starting to heal, starting to be open to, how can I be open to maybe forgiving, be open to more allowing, be open to more accepting. What are some steps I can take? Maybe how can I be more mindfulness or mindful, or how can I start breathing more? Or what are some tools that I can have in my spiritual toolbox and my emotional kit to help me test this out and see if I can survive this? You know, going to counseling, going to therapy, going to energy healers, getting massage, doing self-care, all of those things could be related to testing. And then the final one is depression. I'm sorry. I feel like I skipped depression. I think I did. Okay, so after bargaining is depression, before testing. So depression, everyone understands what that means, the final realization of the inevitable. And depression can be very, very heavy. Depression is when you feel that there's no way out. So depression is at the bottom, I feel, of just the sadness and the grief and the heaviness, and you feel it physically and emotionally and spiritually. It can feel like such a density, and again, like there's no way out. So in the order, I'm going to say them now, and then I'll end with the final one. The 7 stages are shock, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, testing, and acceptance. And the 2 that were added in are shock and testing. Otherwise, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance are all the 5 from the original Elisabeth Kubler-Ross model. So finally, we move into acceptance. And acceptance is finding the way forward. How do I move forward from here? How can I really allow what is? How can I be with what is? How can I be with what is without trying to change, force, push, and effort, and just allow? How can I accept? That is the surrender. That is the letting go and letting God. And the thing about all of this is that when we grieve, it is a natural process, and we can get caught in grief for too long, but only we would know if that's the case, where it would take maybe years and years where you're just not moving on with your life. That to me would be getting caught in grief for too long. Whereas instead you can turn grief around. I have a friend who lost a daughter when the daughter was only about 8 years old, and she turned her grief into a nonprofit to help provide support for other parents that have lost children from the same disease that her daughter passed from. And so that's how we can move through grief. We can move through grief in a way that is beneficial eventually to ourselves and others. We see it as a growth experience, a learning experience, and obviously this takes time. And again, it just depends on the person, the situation, and the severity of the grief, or we can stay stuck in it. And some of that is our choice. So I have an affirmation that I want to share. And first I'll share a quote. So I really love the teachings of Rumi, and Rumi says, "The wound is where the light enters you." And so to me, that's a really beautiful reminder of how when we're wounded, there's a purpose behind it. The purpose is to allow the identification of the personality self, the small conditioned self from our society and from our family and from our upbringing. It's allowing that to fall away and be broken open so that we can allow more light to shine from within, so that we can live more from the soul, more from the higher self, more of a soul-led life rather than an ego-led life. So the affirmation that I wanted to share is, I call all of myself back to myself now. When you find that there are moments that you're giving your power away, or you're caught in looping, or you're feeling triggered, take time, come back to your breath, be in stillness, even if it's just for a few moments, and say, I call all of myself back to myself now. And you guys can even repeat it with me now since everyone's muted. I call all of myself back to myself now. I call all of myself back to myself now. I call all of myself back to myself now. And I really love that. Sometimes I think saying it in threes is really powerful. 3 is a very powerful spiritual number. And then we have our 3 candles burning behind me. So that also represents the number 3. Okay. Moving along, I have one of my favorite books. If you've never heard of it, it's called A Circle of Stones. And the author is Judith Durick. And I have tried to find her. I do not think she's still living. I even contacted someone that I knew she was friends with that is a more famous-ish life coach, and I can't remember this other person's name, but I even reached out to her assistant and asked if she knew how to find Judith, and she didn't know. She said they lost touch. So based on the fact that she's not present online, I'm feeling as though she passed, but her work is so profound. When I read this book, and as you can see, it's a pretty thin book, and the words are fairly large. It's a really easy read. It can be read, I would say, in half a day. I was bawling at parts. I was just crying because it just really brought up within me just a deep, deep resonance. The words and the way she says what she says. So I'd just like to read page 53 for you. And this is geared toward women, so it's going to be said along the lines of a woman, but this also applies to men, because I do know we have Michael live and Rod live, and then there will be other men watching later. So I want to honor the men. This book is really about reclaiming your power and recognizing that, and it's geared, like I said, toward women, but we all have both masculine and feminine energy, whether we're in a male or female body. So this will apply to all of us here in this call this evening. To discover who she is, a woman must descend into her own depths. She must leave the safe role of remaining a faithful daughter of the collectives around her, send into her individual feeling values. It will be her task to experience her pain. The pain of her own unique feeling values, calling to her, pressing to emerge. To discover who she is, a woman must trust the place of darkness where she can meet her own deepest nature and give it a voice, weaving the threads of her life into a fabric to be named and given. Sharing it with the women around her as she comes to a true and certain sense of herself. And the other part of this book that I would like to share is this repeats throughout. And as you all, I'm sure know, like thinking about any good speaker, like Martin Luther King, it's like a repetition. She repeats this all the time. How might your life have been different if there had been a place for you? A place of women where you were received and affirmed. A place where other women, perhaps somewhat older, had been affirmed before you, each in her time, affirmed as she struggled to become more truly herself. A place where, after the fires were lighted and the drumming and the silence, there would be a hush of expectancy, filling the entire chamber, a knowing that each woman there was leaving old conformity to find herself. A sense of all of womanhood stood on the threshold. And if during the hush, the other women slightly older had helped you to trust your own becoming, to trust it and quietly and prayerfully to nurture it, how might your life be different? So this is A Circle of Stones by Judith Durek. Give me 1 second. I'm going to turn this heat off that's next to me. I can handle the heat because I grew up in Tucson, but eventually it gets a little bit too much. How might your life have been different? So I have this sage from Sedona, and it was created, bundled, gathered and bundled by a shaman, a medicine man in Sedona. And I just like to clear. Let's have everybody take 3 deep breaths again, breathing in through the nose. And this time we can just out through the mouth. And in through the nose. And out through the mouth. And one more time, in through the nose. Out through the mouth. Just finding that place of stillness and connection from within. So an exhale is a really great way to allow yourself to let go of betrayal, hurt, trauma, grief in your body. And I recently attended a spiritual retreat in Arizona. And one of the things that we were taught from a woman that specializes in the voice and healing through the voice is taking your exhale and turning it into a vowel sound. No consonants, just a vowel. So in this moment, let's just move into that just for a moment. And then we're going to go deeper into the breath. So taking a deep inhale, and then we can just go, ah. Okay, let's all try that together. Deep inhale. Ah. Now you can really play with this. You can do it in the shower. You can do it in the car. You know, as long as you're aware of your surroundings, you can do it when you're home alone, and just allow it to rise up within you. Really move that energy through the vocal folds, through your body, and allow it to turn into whatever it turns into. It can turn into a screaming pitch. It can turn into crying. It can turn into whatever it wants to turn into. The more you allow, and just work with awe at first. Ah. And just feel that resonance and that vibration of ah in your body. And just let it go. Let it out. We have been muzzled in our culture. We have been afraid to speak our truth. We've been afraid to say what we really feel. We've been afraid to speak out and say what is true for us. And now is the time for you to use your voice. Your voice is power, and your voice is such a vehicle for healing. And I really resonate with this as a speech and language pathologist who's also studied counseling and art therapy and integrating everything together. It's like, wow, like the throat chakra, it's like so much power in our voice. It is where we express. And look at this little beautiful box. This shows the symbol of the throat chakra. Trying to get it where the light, there we go. Where the light's not shining right on it and you can't see it. So I'm going to just play this so you can hear it. Again, going to sound. Vibration and sound. Everything in the universe is light and sound. So we really need to start working with that energy of vibration and light and sound and our breath and the power of air and the power of fire and the power of our voice. Deep breath in. Just let it out. But I really do encourage, when you're in a safe place that you can express, just let it out. Let it out. Okay, so understanding our breath. Breathing is the element of air, sound, and speech. To breathe is both the act of inhaling and the act of exhaling. And sometimes when we're in the worst moments where we feel like it's unbearable, all we can do maybe is, in this moment, I breathe in. In this moment, I breathe out. I breathe in. I breathe out. Inhale, exhale. I am here. Or just breathe in, be still. You know, there's all kinds of affirmations and practices to help you with. And if you incorporate the word, like thinking a word is like a mantra. It's like saying the Hail Mary. It's like going through. It helps. A mantra is a mind tool. It helps quiet the mind and bring you into presence. Obviously, the Hail Mary is activating Mother Mary and bringing that energy in of Christ consciousness, Mother Mary, the presence of Mother Mary. If you just say, I am still, I am calm, that's just bringing into your awareness. But there are many, even the practice of Om. Om is the vibration of the universe. That's what the universe sounds like. Oh, Om. And going along with mantra, you can do mudras. This is a mudra where we're taking the element of air and fire in our hands. So anyone that's familiar a little bit with Chinese medicine, qi is energy in China, right? Life force energy, it's also called prana in India. On your hand, this is fire, this is air, this is space, the ring finger is earth, and the pinky is water. So if you bridge fire with air, that's transformation. That's activation. So that's the mudra. And that's why you see people using this one a lot. But you know, you can do this one, this one, this one. Okay. So air feeds fire, right? So in yoga, breath is pranayama. Again, prana means life force. And pranayama is the act of breathing. It is the fourth limb of yoga and the 8-limb path. So when we think yoga, we think the physical postures, but yoga is actually an 8-limbed path. And breath is one of the limbs. It is the fourth limb. So prana is the vital force energy that channels through your body and gives you a sense of aliveness. It is what is within all things, every flower, every tree, every blade of grass. It is within every cell of your body. In the morning, prana is most alive at dawn, right before the sun starts to come up. There's an aliveness. In my yoga teacher training in Costa Rica, that's what I was taught by my teachers. She said to me, my one teacher said, Amba, she said that nature rests throughout the night under the moonlight, being bathed in the moonlight, and all the stillness, and then in the morning, prana is most alive. And in Costa Rica, what's really interesting is as the sun rises, all of the monkeys and the birds and everybody is like singing, celebrating each new day. It is crazy loud. Like you don't need an alarm. You wake up to all of the animals celebrating each day. So I invite you to take tomorrow morning and celebrate it as a new day. Today is the best day ever. Today is going to be a great day. Today is a great day. Miracles are happening now. Synchronicities and beauty and miracles are coming into my life today. I am so excited for today. I can't wait to see what is going to happen today. So that's a shift. Prana is also about intention. So wherever your intention goes, prana flows. So whatever you're focused on, whether it be negative or positive, your life force energy is going to go in that direction. And that leads us into the third lesson that I want to discuss as we're moving into now hitting the hour point. We have till 7:30, so we still have some time. The third lesson is about understanding the thinking mind. So going into that, where your life force energy, your prana flows, is based on your intention. So if you're thinking, I don't have enough, I can't get this, nothing right is ever happening for me, I'm not enough, I'm not worthy, I don't have enough money, I don't have enough, you're going to keep feeding not enoughness. So I invite you, for everything that you're telling yourself that you don't have, turn it into the opposite. So everything is coming to me easily and effortlessly. Money and opportunities and divine synchronicities are happening now. I am so excited to see what's coming. Esther Hicks speaks of it this way: tuned in, tapped in, turned on. I like to see us as our physical body is like a lamp. And if you plug that lamp into the source, into the divine source energy that you are, that's plugging into your higher self, plugging into God, plugging into your divine birthright, your sovereign divinity, the divine light that you are. The more deeper and stronger that connection is of you as the lamp plugged into the light, the more your light can shine. Your soul is so huge, and your body is held within your soul. It is not your soul within your body. It is your body within your soul. And you are this being of light. And the more you are unafraid to be who you are and express who you are, the more you expand. So this is what I want to say about the thinking mind. Our thoughts are like radio waves. They are invisible, and it depends on our vibration as to what we're tuning into, right? So you can tune into lower vibrational thoughts, which is the denser, I don't have enough, I'm not enough. Actually, I was going to wait for tomorrow to show this, but I'm going to show it now, and then we're going to show it again tomorrow and go into it a little bit more. But this is the Omega chart of emotions. And if you're focused down here on the alpha point, the lower emotions, they're guilt, shame, apathy, grief, fear. Then we move up to desire, anger, pride, courage. It's interesting, courage is under neutrality. So neutrality is at that 250 point. Okay, shame is at 20. Then if we move up, willingness, acceptance, reason, love is at 500, joy is at 540, peace is at 600, and enlightenment is at 700 plus. And you can see the spectrum of color. It's the rainbow. So in this color, red relates to the root chakra. This is all based in survival, and then it moves up to enlightenment. So it's also ties in with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's, to me, really fascinating. So you can look this up and find it online. If you just look up energy, emotions chart, or Omega chart, I think you'll find it. So sometimes surrender looks like a dirty turkey pan that was placed in clean water. All of a sudden, everything seems like it's getting dirtier and messier and uckier. In yoga, it's like the lotus flower that starts down in the mud, and you're in the mud. You are in the mud. You're in the muck, in the mud, and you're like, where is my way out of this? But the only way to clean that dirty turkey pan and to rise out of the mud is to be in the mud. So there's a saying in spirituality, in religion and spirituality, as above, so below. I'm sure everyone's heard that, right? So I have noticed myself this tendency to spiritually bypass, or want to only be up in the upper three chakras, right? And if you don't know what chakras are, we can go into that a little bit more, but basically the upper three are the more spiritual. The heart is the middle, and then the upper three are throat, third eye, and crown. The spiritual bypassers and this more spiritual empath, highly sensitive people, and I'm not saying are all spiritual bypassers, but I myself have been a spiritual bypasser, wanting to only be in the upper three and avoid the bottom three. And the bottom three are the solar plexus, the hips, and the root, the legs and the feet, and the genital area, the perineal floor, and all of that. We have learned to kind of detach from our body in order to be safe. When we experience trauma, we want to jump out, right? The psyche, again, protects us by jumping us out so we don't experience maybe even death sometimes, or what feels like we can't handle it, it's too much. And so a lot of us are not fully in our bodies. And so tomorrow we're going to go into embodiment and how to be more fully in our bodies and our grounded state of being. But right now, just focusing on the element of breath and air, the visual I got in preparation for tonight's call is sort of like sweeping a floor. Like imagining you have a broom and your inner world has some dust and debris and some other things that need to get swept out, and you're just taking your broom and you're sweeping and cleaning very mindfully, very, very lovingly, very non-judgmentally. And that is pretty much what I wanted to share tonight. I have some practices that I would like to share, and I think that what I'm going to do is place them in the Facebook group. But basically, they are writing a list of all the resentments you have as a kind of a way to release, or whatever is coming up for you, do it as a stream of consciousness. Like, let's say with the resentments, I resent blank because, and just keep writing. Or in the morning, you can do morning pages. I recommend just for morning pages, just getting like a legal pad and just write whatever comes whenever you wake up and just let it all out. Stream of consciousness, no judgment, let it out. And then you can hide it, burn it, do whatever you need to do with it. But I want you to allow yourself to express and be free to get those negative thoughts out. If you want to journal what you're thinking, journal the beliefs that you have, and then maybe turn it around, you know. Another practice I have is forgiveness. You know, depending on the type of loss, sometimes it may require forgiveness. So that could be writing a letter of who you need to forgive. And I'd like to talk about the 4 agreements, but I think we're going to wait until tomorrow to discuss that. So I'll end with a card that I pulled for everyone from another deck that I have from the Spirit Animal Oracle by Colette Baron Reed. And this is literally the card I pulled for tonight. It's called Dove Spirit, and it's Be Peace. The message is, with her peaceful cooing, gentle dove spirit allows you to embrace the energy of peace and allow compassion to warm your heart. You always have power to generate peace within you. And the appearance of dove spirit is a reminder that today and every day is a good day to meditate, to quiet any turbulence within you as you embody tranquility. Above, below, and all around you, much may be happening to distract you, but you are called to engage with the heart of a peacemaker, asking yourself, what would peace do? Can you agree or disagree? The peace you seek rises within and spreads out onto the world as Dove Spirit sends her messenger to remind you of the beauty of a harmonious existence with all that is. How beautiful and powerful is your compassionate heart. So what would love do, and how can you be more at peace? I invite you as an anchor point throughout the next 24 hours before our next call to just practice the Ujjayi breath that we practiced earlier. So again, taking a deep breath in and exhaling out with a constricted throat, doing that 3 times. And then I also invite you to sit in stillness for 5 to 10 minutes twice a day if it's possible. If you can only do once a day, then just do once a day. But I invite you for the next 24 hours before you go to bed tonight, if you're able, and then when you wake up in the morning tomorrow, can you sit, first do the 3 Ujjayi breaths, deep inhale through the nose, exhale, constricted throat, and then sit in stillness for at least 5 to 10 minutes. And just notice what you notice. Just feeling into your body, feeling your seat, feeling and noticing and allowing. And if any thoughts come in, any emotions come up, just allow them to come through. Can you feel and be with everything? And especially with the thoughts, it's really good to allow them to be like clouds. Can I just visualize an open sky? Many of you on this call are in New Mexico, and thank you so much for being live with me. Imagine the vast open New Mexico sky, and just imagine the cloud going past. That is the thought, allowing it to pass through. All right, so I'd like to open now. If there's anyone that would like to turn on their video or anyone that would like to unmute, if there's any questions, we'll hold space for a moment for any questions.
Stacy.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
Can you go over the mudras that are on the different fingers again? Because I didn't catch it.
Yes, definitely. Okay. So I'll show the book that I got this out of, because I have noticed online that it is slightly different depending on who's saying it. But I really love this book. I feel like it's very comprehensive. And this might be an older version, but it would still be available on Amazon or wherever. I shouldn't just promote Amazon. Sometimes I'm annoyed with Amazon. Okay, so it shows the hands in here, and I'll basically say it because I know it's hard to see. So the thumb is fire. The thumb is fire. The pointer finger is air. The middle finger, I don't want to do that to you guys, is heaven, space, or the ether. The ring finger is earth, and the pinky finger is water. Also, I'll just go over this too, since we're discussing the chakras. We discussed the chakras earlier. It also has them as as 5 of the chakras. So in that case, the thumb would be the solar plexus, which again goes with fire. The pointer is the heart, and that goes with air. The throat is the middle, the throat chakra. The root, which again is earth, that is the the ring finger. And then the pinky is the sacral chakra, and that's water. So it's the same, it parallels the elements and the chakras. If you know the chakras, you recognize that the elements and the chakras are the same with these 5. Do you get it?
Yep. Thank you.
You're welcome. That was a great question. I know, I think it's really cool.
Me too.
Does anyone else have any questions? Anything they'd like to share? Any clarifications?
Stacy.
Hi, Jerry.
Hi, how are you? I just wanted to share that this has been a lovely way to spend an hour and a half, and I appreciate it very much, and I'm filled with gratitude for everything that I've learned tonight. So thank you.
Thank you, Jerry.
Mhm.
It's beautiful. That actually brings me to this mudra. So the hands to the heart is the prayer mudra. We're all familiar with that one. And it's in yoga called the Anjali mudra. And so just really remembering that connection to the heart and really dropping down from the head to the heart is a key point to going through the process of grief and surrendering. And then one other mudra is you take your pinkies and your thumbs together. So like say I start in prayer mudra, and then I open my fingers, and it's called the offering of flowers. And then you place that into your heart, and that is opening to receive. And it can help you if you just sit in your chair or in a meditative position, lotus or half lotus or whatever's comfortable, crisscross applesauce even, and just, you know, sitting and holding your hands to your heart and opening to receiving and allowing your heart to just open. Imagining your heart almost being like a bud of a rose, and that opening, blossoming. I really, again, see, you know, spiritual growth is like this open, expansive blossoming, unfolding into this higher self that we all are. Thank you, Jerry. And thank you, Stacy, for your question. I didn't say that the first one was Stacy, but we have two Stacys on the call. And funny enough, we're both from Pennsylvania, and both therapists, and both have ties in the adoption realm. I was adopted and she's an adoptive mother. I hope she doesn't mind me sharing that. I don't think she does. Oh, I'm just extremely grateful for everyone here. So if no one else has any other questions, I'll hold it open for another minute.
Hello?
Hi, Michael.
Hi. I wanted to, first of all, I wanted to thank you for opening up about your divorce. And yeah, that really meant a lot to me because I'm going through something similar. And yeah, I know firsthand the abuse, the emotional abuse, and you know, just the whole gaslighting and everything that I've had to kind of endure. And you know, to be fair, my wife has had to endure as well. But I really appreciate that. I wanted to maybe offer something for the Kundalini or the chakras.
Okay, absolutely.
Okay, so I can post something up in the group wall if you guys want. Now, there's the 7 major chakras. So the lower one is your root chakra, and so when you're imagining your root chakra, a nice thing that you can chant or say is Lam, 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 and imagine red, because that's the color that resonates with the root. And then the next one up is the sacral chakra, and you can just imagine orange, and that's Vam, V-A-M, Vam. And when you're saying these things, you'll actually feel the vibration in those areas. Especially if you you know, look online and you can see where all the 7 chakras are, then you can actually visualize it, and then it'll help to feel those energy centers better. And then the next one up is your solar plexus, and that resonates in the color yellow. You imagine yellow orb, and you just say Ram, R-A-M, Ram. And then the next one up is your heart chakra. Of course, there's the lower and the upper heart chakra. Lower heart chakra resonates in green, and the upper is pink. Now, for the sake of the heart chakra, we can just imagine green, and you say Yam, Y-A-M, Yam. And then the next one up is your throat chakra, which you were speaking about. And interestingly enough, Archangel Michael resonates with that throat chakra as well. But you imagine the color blue, and that one goes Ham, H-A-M, Ham. And then the next one up, of course, is your third eye, and you imagine indigo, a nice indigo color. And that one is Om, Om, O-M, H-O-M. And then your last one is your crown chakra, and you can just imagine that nice violet color. And a good one that you can do is just go Ah, A-H. Some people are just silent with the crown. So I just wanted to share that with you guys.
Well, thank you, Michael. Yes, I saw your video where you were showing how you were using the energy and bringing that into your body. And yes, thank you for sharing that. Very cool.
Absolutely. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, does anyone else have anything they would like to share? I'm noticing the dream catcher behind me just as a reminder to hold on to your dreams, hold on to this decision to allow is also a decision to trust the universe, to know that you are safe, to know that you are protected, to know that you are a child of God, to know that all is well. And all you have to do is be still and know, be still and know. Okay, you guys, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to end the call now. We'll turn off the recording and just want to say thank you. Thank you so much for being live with me. And I love you all and have a beautiful evening.